cares? Hey everybody, my name is Jamie and I can't play guitar, and this is day one of what will hopefully be a daily stream. Well, not hopefully, it's going to be a daily stream, and I'm going to be here live between 4 and 6 a.m. every day for at least a half hour to practice my guitar. And you can come, bring whatever you're practicing, and hang out with us and get some work done. It'll be just a good way for me to have something to stick to, some good new habit. I've been trying to play guitar for 30 days straight and do bookwork and have a regimented practice schedule in that time, and it just hasn't been working out. If you look through this channel is actually why I started playing guitar, or where I started playing guitar. We'll link our first ever live session where we literally was maybe the second or first actual time we played our guitar, this guitar, and you can see the progress from then. I can definitely play some. I can definitely play some chords and some other stuff, but I've actually got the electric signal from this guitar cut out from the broadcast because I thought, although I like hearing it, eventually, if y'all were here to practice yourselves and we're going to watch some videos and maybe have a little chat, then you're probably not going to want to hear my coily strings out of tune and me tuning up and me fumbling around. So if you do want to hear what I'm playing, let me know in the chat. I can turn the guitar back on, but that's why the guitar is not going to be, you're not going to hear the electric signal a lot of the time. It's not going to never be on. You may jump in the live, you may hear my electric signal, but for now, it's actually not going through our audio source. We have it just cut, so you can hear it when we have the mic on, kind of out of frame, but I also hear, some distortion in my amp and things like that. So if you'd like to hear what that sounds like, let me know, but it'll go back on eventually, but that's why you don't hear the full guitar in the audio mix, so we can still chat and it's not super annoying. So I'm actually going to tune up and we're going to listen to a podcast while we do that, fiddle around for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to go into some book work. And we're working out of the Guitar Method Book 1. You can see behind me on the screen there, we have a 30-minute timer. I'm going to go a little bit above that, but we want to practice for at least 30 minutes every day. So I've already spent 5 minutes flapping my gums. Let's get into tuning and get going. We're going to shut the mic off. If you have any questions or we're working on things, let us know. Again, we'll turn things back on periodically, but in general, we're going to be listening to a podcast that's on my podcast list, so y'all can also dive into it at another time, but you don't have to be watching it. And then on the other side of things, I'm going to tune up, and we're gonna start practicing. So if you have something you're practicing, you have something you're trying to work on, join us every day between 4 and 6. If you want to know the exact time, you can follow I Can't Play Guitar or at Seriously Can't Play Guitar on Instagram. Check our stories every day for the time that we're going to go live, and here we go. Latest episodes. Let's tell you guys what. Okay, well, let's listening to Chairman of the Boards, which is a guitar podcast by 3 different guys who are rig and pedal builders. Who's the greatest rig builder of all time? Let's listen to it. This is Chairman of the Boards.
I'm just gonna start recording because I think this is funny. Well, I think what I want to start with is if we're speaking about live versus live events, I remember that Dunlop used to have I don't know if it's still their slogan, but it used to be live to play live. Although it could have been live to play live or live to play live. I don't know, like instinctually, where are you guys on the live versus live debate?
Live to play live.
Live to play live.
Live to play live.
And this is a great segue into our Dunlop sponsorship. Thank you to Jimmy. Just kidding. I do really like Dunlop products. Actually, they make a lot of good stuff. But today we have a really an even cooler topic than the topic of sponsorships. Although we're incredibly grateful for the sponsorship, I think people are interested to know what we believe to be the best rig builder to ever walk the earth. Presumably, there is the best. We don't know how we're going to qualify it or quantify it, but we are going to attempt to unload some history and some understanding about some individuals in the game that changed the game and have had a major influence on the way that we all do our business because of the trail that they blazed through technological innovations that they kind of pioneered, styles with which they assembled pedal boards and racks that have become the standard for the industry, and maybe other people that have taken those innovations and have improved upon them and have created additional innovations of their own, which have become sort of the standard by which, again, we continue to build rigs to this day. And this is always evolving, and there may be other people over time that will become sort of part of this list. But I think before we get into some of the details of this, when I say best rig builder of all time to you, who are some of the names that come to mind? Grant. We'll start with Grant, and then we're going to go to you, Brian. So get ready.
I think probably the first name that comes to mind is Pete Cornish. He would be up there. I do have to admit, though, in saying this, I am not the world's biggest history buff on rig builders, so my list could be quite skewed to just the first people I came across rather than really diving deep into this arena. So I would say from the limited research I've done, Pete Cornish should be up there. I will say, though, the first rig builder that influenced me when we first started Gig Rig, which I don't think we're going to spend tons of time on today, would be LA Sound Design, which I know a lot of people, if you're into rig building, you've heard of LA Sound Design. But by no means would I say he would be the number one best. He would just be my entrance into that world. So Pete Cornish, I would say for me, would probably be up there as probably one of the top, but not necessarily, not my first. He wasn't, yeah. So I'll hand off to you, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with what Grant just said with those guys. They definitely are. For me, is Bob Bradshaw was definitely like that rig builder. I just watched so much of his stuff, and the cool thing about it is seeing so much of like what he did back in the day is still. I have photos and stuff. He still does now, but other companies have based off products or certain types of systems off of him. And it's just definitely, he's definitely like that first one that like I think anytime I hear rig building, especially when working with LA people, a lot of LA people now, you hear, LA Sound Design or Bob Bradshaw. And I don't even think is he in LA? I don't think he is. But he works with a lot.
He's in Lititz, Pennsylvania now.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So I mean, hearing that he had worked with so many people and literally Googling.
All right, they're just saying Bradshaw, who's a famous board builder, rig builder. I forget who he even worked with. I don't know if he was one of the guys that worked with Van Halen or not, but Bradshaw's a guy where I want to say guys like Dave Friedman worked under him and came out of like his shop. I think that's right. We'll see if Mason goes on to talk about that. But the reason I stopped is because Lititz, PA is right near where I grew up in Lancaster, PA. So cool to see shout out to Lidditz. Lidditz also home of Wilbur Chocolate Buds, which it's close to Hershey in that area, but they are far superior and also more expensive than Hershey. But if you're ever in the area, go down to Lidditz. It's a really cute small town, and then you can make a quick trip to Hershey Park. So you can hit them both and hit up Terry Bradshaw, I guess. Or I said Terry Bradshaw. I don't know the guy's first name. Bradshaw, someone.
I'm seeing all the rigs and all the people and all these. It was definitely the first one for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think that you mentioned, I think, two of the really big guys. Certainly Cornish has been one of the people that's been at it the longest. The people that I would add to this list would be Paul Rivera, and most people know Paul Rivera from his amplifiers. Or the modifications that he used to do when he was working for Valley Arts, and he was the amplifier technician at Valley Arts, and there was a tremendous amount of just high quality talent that had come through Valley Arts, especially in that amplifier repair department. Steve Fryette, who founded VHT, and Fryette was also one of the understudies of Paul Rivera and trained under him. And Paul Rivera was one of the guys that was doing really early versions of pedal boards. Now, this predates switchers and all that stuff, and certainly Bradshaw advanced that. But I think as far as like early pedal board builders, I think Cornish and Paul Rivera were probably the two earliest that were really doing it professionally back in the 70s. And I have some cool photos of an old Paul Rivera rig from that era that we're going to get a chance to check out today if you're watching it on YouTube. I think other rig builders that are worth mentioning that I don't know that they have the same sort of pedigree in terms of the historical context and sort of the trailblazing aspect of a Cornish or a Bradshaw or the Paul Rivera in terms of sort of like starting it out. But I think Dave Friedman is another one that really should be named in that. And although he wasn't necessarily releasing products that were based around pedalboard and rack building until more recently, he and Robert Bradshaw, by the time the 90s came around, were kind of the two games in town. And it seemed like Bradshaw's specialization was more with the studio guys, and then Dave was kind of more like the rock and roll guys, like the Slashes, and then Eddie Van Halen kind of started working with.
There you go. I hate to cut Mason off, but Eddie Van Halen started working with. We'll find out in just a second, but yeah, obviously Bradshaw and Friedman somehow related. I was kind of wrong. I guess maybe they started out in similar shops, but became sort of colleagues, competitors at one point in LA, shooting down different lanes. Let's keep going.
Dave Friedman, and a lot of the big touring acts that Bradshaw couldn't service. There was just so much volume of people there in LA that one guy couldn't do it all, and that really left a space for Dave Friedman to be able to sort of absorb that all of those other players that just couldn't all be under the Bradshaw umbrella. I think also, as you mentioned, I think LA Sound Design in the more recent, the last 10 or 15 years, certainly as far as having more visibility on the social media thing, I think he understood that earlier than the other sort of legacy builders. I also think that in the European market, you have guys like Steen Skrijstrup. I think now it's called Caveman Audio instead of going by his name, but he also has some really amazing, beautiful work on the rack and pedal board front. And also Paul Lenders from Guitar Systems. He also a European guy that does beautiful, beautiful work, has some pedals, has some products as well, and does really, really great stuff. I don't know that necessarily we're gonna list those guys as sort of historic figures with which monuments should be erected in their honor, but I think that they're also guys that we should know about if you are generally interested in the rig building world. So maybe we'll start back with maybe the elder statesmen of the rig building world, which I think have to be Cornish and Paul Revere. I understand, Grant, that you have some photos of some examples of Pete Cornish's work, but if you could just run us through maybe some of the artists that we might have heard of that use Pete Cornish stuff before we maybe look at some of the photos.
I went on his website doing a little bit of research, and he lists his artists by year. And you gotta scroll, like it goes back to 72. And so I listed some of the highlights for me, starting in no really particular order, but I'll go through these really quick.
Okay.
Yes, Queen, Pink Floyd, Cat Stevens, Police, ABBA, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Pretenders, Iron Maiden, Dire Straits, Pat Metheny, George Michael, come on, Paul McCartney, Bryan Adams, Sting, My Bloody Valentine, Diesel, Robert Plant, Muse, Metallica, Gilmore, Page, Elton John, The Who, Oasis, Zeppelin, The Cure, Keith Urban, Santana, Maroon 5, John Mayer, and the list was much bigger than that. Those are some of my highlights. And like, I was just going through this list like, dear God, this guy, he's been at it firstly for 40, almost 50 years. And he's just worked with everybody. So even if you just think about, I know all of us have done rigs for different people over the years, and you kind of learn a little bit from everyone you do a rig with. And I'm just looking at the amount of people he's learned with, the amount of requirements for every individual artist, what they bring to the table. Like, this guy would have this backlog of knowledge that is just unparalleled. And so it's very impressive looking at the list of artists he's worked with, and some of the pictures of the rigs that he's done are very impressive. In particular, Brian May rig, I found a photo on his website from 1981, and it highlights how far these things have come over the last few decades. It's incredible. So it was really cool to read that. So those are some of the highlights for me, but again, many more out there.
So Grant, if you could show us some photos of these rigs, I would really love to see it. I also have one of the Clapton rig that is a massive rack rig that Cornish had built. But before we do that, I want to have Brian talk to you about a few sponsors that make the podcast possible every single week.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we love our sponsors. They're phenomenal. They, as Mason said, make this podcast possible. And the first one is going to be the Guitar Sanctuary, where I'm currently sitting in right now.
TGS. He loves it so much. He just goes
TGS. I got a refrigerator down here. So I'm set. I got the snack.
Does it have a Guitar Sanctuary bumper sticker on the fridge?
No, it doesn't. I should grab one. I have vendor stickers of different companies, but I guess I just forgot to get one. I will be adding that today. But they are amazing. I have been here for almost over 5 years, and just high quality boutique instruments and accessories, and the staff here is amazing. Everyone up front is amazing. All the way in the back, hidden, so you won't see me as often. But they're knowledgeable, quick response, fast shipping. They are amazing with beautiful equipment, which we do carry Vertex and Goodwood Audio equipment, which I have used constantly. So big shout out to the Guitar Sanctuary here in McKinney, Texas. The second one is going to be it's our new sponsor that we had chatted about last week is Neural DSP. Very excited for Neural. They have amazing plugins. Their new Quad Cortex has been a really big hit for so many musicians nowadays with these hybrid rigs or these compact travel systems. And they have a discount code, Chairman, CHAIRMEN, for 30% off of 30% all of their plugins.
Yeah, that's 70% away from free.
Right. That is the way you look at it. So And it applies to all of their plugins. It does not apply to like their quad or any brand new like plugins that if they release today, those plugins wouldn't be available with this code until 90 days after it's been released. So, if you find a plugin you want, save that code, write it down in your phone, tattoo it on your arm. I don't know what you gotta do. Just remember the code and or get tattooed on your forehead, whatever, however you're feeling, and hit them up because they're amazing, and we're very excited to have them here.
Mhm.
And
Sorry,
We
Brian.
might have lost you for a second, but I think everything is on the table, except for the Mark II C Plus, which is maybe like when this podcast comes out, maybe a month away. So, in any case, great deal, man. 30%. I mean, that's a crazy discount to give, and I've only been using the Corey Wong one, but I love that for cleans. But let's get back to Pete Cornish. So,
check. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah,
we can hear you.
Sorry, my
Gotcha.
computer had a brain fart. Everything clicked out.
we've all been there before. We all have brain farts.
Hopefully it doesn't smell.
Yep. Burning IC chips. Ooh, excuse me.
It's very plasticky. So back to Pete Cornish. Speaking of burning ICs,
There we go.
you got some photos for us, Grant, so that we can look into. We said Pete Cornish was sort of alone there in the United Kingdom in England, doing his thing since clear back in the 70s. Military trained man, as I recall. Learned all of his electronics training back then, and I'm sure developed more skills as he worked in the world of guitar pedals, racks, and pedal boards. Let's see some of the famous ones.
There we go. Can you guys see
We're gonna
that?
share the screen here. Look at this.
Look at that.
Let's go
Oh,
into.
my Lord.
Dang.
So I have the list of artists up there as well on the screen. But the cool thing I like about Cornish is I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys know more about this or can add to it, but you can tell by the way that he builds a rig that he looks at it as one complete system. Even in the fact of how he, can mount all these different pedals within. You can see top left on the screen. Or if you're listening, it's kind of like one big board and everything is kind of mounted in this one giant enclosure with flip switches that he adds in. And so he treats it as a system. And I think that only benefits the user or the guitar player. And then you can see bottom left, Brian May, the rig I was just chatting about, really highlights the leaps and bounds we have come since 1981. There's a picture, it's a black and white picture. There's some mutes on the bottom left, Echoplex 1 and 2. It is it looks like a piece of plywood with pedals almost taped down to it. And it's a pedal board, but we've come a long ways. Right beside that, there's David Gilmour's rack rig from I think that was the early 2000s, but I could be wrong. Massive monstrosity of a rack. And then obviously some other ones as well with Reed. And then I think below this, if I can change slides. Don't fail me now, technology.
Do you guys know what the TB-83 is?
I think it's a treble booster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the next slide is a whole bunch of his custom stuff, which if you see a Pete Cornish pedal on a board, you know straight away. Like it has this kind of iconic look to it.
He's not afraid of size.
He's not shy on size. He also likes to print all of his labels, so there's no screen printing. It's as far as I know, it's mostly stickers and decals.
Yep, he uses a lot of label maker tape. That's for sure.
That's it. He probably is sponsored by a good label maker.
My brother, label makers, the Pete.
I don't know if you guys have ever. I don't know if you guys have ever owned a Pete Cornish pedal or spent significant time on it. We've had a couple come in on builds, but I've never, integrated one into my own rig or done any of that. But I've always been very curious to spend a bit more time with them.
Yeah, they're incredibly.
Yeah, I've done. Yeah, I've had a couple come through on a guitarist that I've done some stuff for over in the UK, and I think he's had 3 or 4. Most of them are like one of them was a boost, but one of them is massive. I think it was a P1 or P2. I don't know what it was called, but it was like it was huge. Like it was a big old pedal. I just remember, but yeah, you see that enclosure, the size and the color of it, and you're like, oh. I don't know what that is.
Yep.
I'm going to show you one of the rack rigs that he built for Eric Clapton in the 80s, and this thing is incredible.
Jeez.
Double Soldanos. He also built him, I believe, the rack on the right is so that it can be used in multiple different voltages, because back then there maybe wasn't the same availability to, firstly having an amp that could do, 120, 230, etc. And so I believe this is to regulate all the voltage for US, UK, and Japan. And then, of course, he's got the full-blown rack. And then he's got 2 Soldanos. And I believe he's running these in parallel. It has kind of like a floor controller there. And then it's kind of hard to see. But if you look in the main part of the rack, you can kind of see where it looks like Battleship.
Yep.
And this was like the routing matrix for the foot switch. So the tech could override the foot switch by using this pin configuration in a different way and could get some different sounds or could change the sounds remotely without Eric having to do it on the controller on the floor.
It almost looks like
the power conditioner is like a Furman. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah.
No, you're good. It almost looks like an old like telephone operator system where you pull out these TT plugs and put them in where they need to go type thing. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think undoubtedly Pete Cornish, in terms of like if I were to say one thing or a few things that he does that's like super unique to him. I think firstly the mechanical aspect where like he's coming up with full enclosures he's basically, when you take him a pedal board or take him the gear to make a pedal board, he rehouses all of the pedals with their own foot switches and displays into a new enclosure. So he is in essence making everything from scratch, and his style of doing things, as I recall, I've only seen a few diagrams of like routing systems. I feel like I have some hidden somewhere where it was, I think it was for Bryan Adams, the Pride of Canada.
Thank you.
Where there had been like a routing scheme that I'd gotten a hold of that showed how he routed everything in the pedal board. And he puts a buffer between every stage. So like every pedal. So there'd be a buffer between every pedal so that like every pedal impedance wise is isolated from the next one. And so just like a really interesting approach that really nobody has or is doing. I would say there's some people that have kind of tried to do similar things to what he's done. But really super unique in the way that he operates and just like the level of customization, like just like that whole like power thing with Eric Clapton. I mean, like that's like crazy. Like that rig had to be tens of thousands of dollars back then. And not because he was just being frivolous, that stuff was hard to make, and he had to create a whole interface for that stuff, and I mean, I'm sure that rig took months. So I think his pedigree is very impressive, and of course the pedals are very impressive. Used by guys like John Mayer is a big user of like the tape echo simulation, and has used various fuzzes and things like that from them over time, and just really cool stuff. Any final thoughts on Cornish before we move on?
I think we covered Cornish.
All right.
That was a good start.
It was a good start. So I think in keeping with maybe just going sequentially in time, his American contemporary, at least when he started out in the 70s, would have been somebody like Paul Revere in LA. I think Paul Revere is often uncredited as had a commercially available buffer unit that was.
All right, it has been a half hour, and since I'm watching my son this morning and he seems to be waking up, that's going to be that for today. I appreciate anyone that did join us or stop by to watch the rebroadcast. We'll be back again tomorrow around 5:30 a.m., and we'll see you then. Keep playing guitar or whatever you're doing. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you want to know exactly when we're going live, you can subscribe to this channel on YouTube and hit the bell notification. Hit that thumbs up button if you like this video, and just follow us on Instagram at Seriously Can't Play Guitar. That's I Can't Play Guitar is going to come up as, and that's me. You can follow me there, and we'll be putting story updates out every day that we go live, which is going to be every day. And again, it's going to be around this time, between 5:30 and 6 every day, so join us here. Bring whatever you're working on. You're reading a book, you're doing your fucking taxes. Hopefully not, because tax season's over. Either way, we'll be here working on guitar, so you can join us for all of that and lots of goofs and gaffs next time. See you then.